The whole meeting to order in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. We have a current copy of the act. It is available here at the meeting at one of the tables over there. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Alarcon, Barr,
Here.
Hemer,
Here.
Jablonski, Lopez, Polensky,
Here.
Roth, Schilling.
Yep.
Chair Hemer, the roll has been called.
Thank you. Looks like our first item up today is presentation from HDR on the engineering of the Safe Streets and Roads Act.
Hello. My name's John Mart, and I am with HDR, working with Public Works here at the city on the Safe Streets and Roads for All project. I'm hoping that.
If you want to, that table will go up and help you out there. There you go.
Perfect. All right. So today is an in-progress update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All project. Began earlier in 2025 and will be continuing through early 2026. This is a federally grant-funded project, and we are working to develop a comprehensive safety action plan. It's an 8-step process that's required to meet the terms of your grant. It will also help kind of bring a lot of community process and support to potential safety findings, and it enables you for the second or implementation round of the SS4A program when such offerings should come open. We are working through all these 8 steps, and I'll talk through some of them as we progress today, but really this is grounded in both community engagement and then data-driven safety findings. So, wanted to talk very briefly about why these community safety plans matter and why so many have been funded by this program. Obviously, when we look at 2017 to 2023, there have been 63 people who have died or were seriously injured on roads in the Columbus area. Every one of those is a tragic loss of life, and just really it's critical that our leadership of communities focus on how to bring a safe system so we don't have this tragic loss of life. Some of these, situations that lead to unsafe conditions are just very difficult to swallow. 43 people who were just walking or biking on the road and were, died or were seriously injured in a crash. 1,000 young people who were in some type of crash, either serious or could have been serious in the community in this 7-year period. And then again, just want to call attention to some of the situations that might lead to unsafe outcomes, like driving in an unsafe decision with either drug or alcohol impairment. So these are all those places where they may not have heard that the mapping tool existed or may not use that sort of online software. We've held engagement booths at community events. And then we also just recently, last 2 or 3 weeks, had some design meetings on specific corridors of interest that I'll talk about, gathering feedback. And then we've had one meeting of the so-called safety committee that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in the future. Themes from these meetings, again, there's some of this is engineering, but in a lot of cases what people are mostly recognizing is a lot of poor driving behavior that's leading to unsafe outcomes, speed being a major one, and then also just disregard for traffic control devices. So there are some engineering measures we can do there, but again, we have to think more holistically to deal with those kinds of issues. So we've got a comprehensive safety analysis document over to our engineering staff at the city for them to look at. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is 4 priority areas that have shown up as being a limited amount of your major public roads, but a major focus of where a lot of the safety concerns are at. These are highlighted here, but I'll read them. Howard Boulevard, 8th Street, the downtown area, 13th and 14th one-way couplets, and then also the Lost Creek Parkway, including its kind of major crossing and just south of there near the high school on 33rd Avenue. So these have been the focus of those design meetings I just talked about. They're also a focus of an additional scope item that is also part of this SS4A program, where we're going to look at high-level concepts for a select number of areas, and these are going to be the areas where we focus on based on the citywide safety findings. I'm just going to show you high level what the corridor looks like today and the type of visualization software that we'll use to show in the future some improvements, and just talk a little bit about some of the things that we've seen. So on Howard Boulevard, obviously this corridor runs through a tight grid at an angle with a lot of crossings that aren't easy for people to navigate, just given the angles of where they're sitting. There's also sidewalk gaps, and then there's just a challenge of getting across 4 lanes of traffic at times. As we've kind of polled people on what they're saying, in a lot of cases, the speeding and the distracted driving are really adding to some of the crash issue that's here. And so have to think about ways that we can target speed on this corridor in addition to potentially filling in some missing infrastructure. 8th Street, this has been studied by the city in the past. Focus of this from those we've talked to in person and online has been that this is one of the better connectivity routes on the south side of town. It is also a neighborhood with direct driveways on it, and so there's a real clash in use and how that affects certain people. What we saw from the survey results is that pedestrians have a difficult time crossing. They're coming from a setback sidewalk where they may not be seen as well, and then when they go to cross an intersection, may just be difficult for them to get into the driver's sight lines. Some of the concerns are at more major intersections, some are at the mid-block location, but generally the heavy vehicles and the speeding are some of what's causing those who are commenting to see issues. We also see crash patterns that go to that same situation of not complying with signs as posted as they should. We held a meeting talking about the downtown area. This obviously is critical because we have multiple user types, those that are coming for business commercial interests, those that are living closer by and just coming over. There are events in the downtown area that change how things operate, and that leads to a lot of mix of uses, vehicles and pedestrian traffic. What a lot of folks were saying at these meetings was that because there are some gaps in when the main road has to stop, people pick up speed. That can be challenging for those who have parked and are trying to walk. Also, some of the situation with the parking on both sides and being an enticement to quickly switch lanes to get over into a parking spot is creating some safety issues. There are also some crosswalk improvements that may be needed for the 14th Street corridor. And then this kind of last sub area, the thing that really pulls it together is that the Lost Creek Parkway, aside from providing other bypass type and other access, is one of the primary routes to get over to the Columbus Public High School. When you combine that intersection on the north with 33rd Avenue near the school, we see a lot of inexperience in driver patterns, and that also contributing to choice of speeds. Generally, there were concerns with speeding overall, poor selection of gaps in traffic, and then also even just some heavy distracted driving in the area. So all of these were kind of key to considerations as we're thinking through what will happen next. I'm going to pull back out of those individual corridors right now to talk about the plan and where it's going to go, but putting that on your mind that that's going to be very critical to this study's success is solving some things on those 4 corridors. The SS4A program, I showed it on the first slide. It has a requirement that communities that have a grant need to make a commitment to either an elimination or a significant reduction by a targeted year of fatalities and serious injuries. As we've looked at the data and we've looked at what's kind of the recurring pattern in Columbus, approximately 10 serious injuries or fatalities in an average year in Columbus. And so one of the recommendations that will come forward in this study that will need this elected body to rule on is what will be a targeted year for the recommendation and elimination of fatalities and serious injuries in Columbus. And so currently proposing the year 2050 to align with a good long planning horizon to get some of these engineering measures in there in order to help along with education enforcement. Many other communities conducting these Safe Streets and Roads for All projects right now. Pretty much across the board, the way that safety is going to be brought about at this level is by applying the safe system approach. This is part of the National Roadway Safety Strategy. It is multi-purpose, multidiscipline. It focuses on 6 core principles, some of which are not common to how we had designed roads and built our design guides in the past. Statements like humans make mistakes and humans are vulnerable, that create a situation where we don't worry about stopping every crash anymore, but we look at what should happen if there was a crash. How can we bring down those physical forces that bodies cannot handle and make a more redundant and resilient system? When you're trying to minimize injury like that, now some of the conversation goes beyond just engineers. We need to also bring in community planners. We need to work with educators so that those kind of folks are making wise decisions. We need to work with law enforcement so that people stay and operate within the bounds, but also just so that they have a good understanding of where they can help provide deterrence, and then working with hospitals so that as we get to that kind of first critical hour of response, if there is a serious crash, that people can be treated and they can be brought back to health. So this is a huge part of all of the safety recommendations we'll be coming up with along the way.
Is your zero fatalities really a realistic goal? I mean, you can't fix stupid, and sometimes that's what causes things. No matter how safe you do, I'm just trying to be realistic here. You're going to tell me we're going to have 0 because of things we do? I don't know if that's practical.
No, that's a really good comment. Again, there is certainly instances where a certain community has reached 0, probably communities of similar size to Columbus, but their conditions may have been very, very different. The safe system approach has been adopted from worldwide data. It's not specifically common in the United States. There are a few places, Hoboken, New Jersey, others that have hit 0, but the main thing is that we need to set an ambitious target. If we don't set an ambitious target, then what we're going to do is we're going to settle for mediocrity. So certainly open to other recommendations, but if you're going to revise something to almost 0, why not just shoot for 0 and miss just a little bit, So again, in order to implement the safe system approach, you need a lot of people working together. You need a lot of change. And so for that to happen, there need to be multiple levels of recommendations. The ones that most people will remember and kind of be focused on from a city delivery point of view is going to be the major projects. These are the ones that are going to focus on those 4 corridors we talked about, that may be a target for future grant funding, that any local match or any local delivery of these projects might go into your capital improvement program over time. And we'll talk about some of those strategies, what they might look like for major projects. But these are where we build infrastructure that reduces those conflict angles. But also very important to this process are the strategies that get deployed because they work. They've worked over and over again, and they're relatively low cost. We don't just deploy them after a crash has happened somewhere. We deploy them where there's risk of a crash happening soon, because if you look at something like curve warning improvements, sometimes a curve will go years and years with no serious injury to it, but then the one happens, and it was predictable because there were 5 other curves just like it where that same thing had happened. So we're using a lot of thinking like that, risk-based thinking, where if we can put a very small investment but targeted, it's still worth it in the long run. There's return on that investment. And then the last one is changing policy. That's how we do design. That's how we do planning. That's approaches to working with engagement, enforcement, and education, and EMS in order to really bring everybody's goal to bring down that worst case outcome, so we have redundancy so that won't happen. Again, sometimes when we talk about the more major projects or even some of the systemic projects, these aren't very common in a community, so I like to just kind of bring what some of these look like. One of the targeted areas we'll talk about is speed management. That does not mean every speed comes down, but it does mean that speed is something that can be designed in engineering. We can design controls that bring speed down. And there's places where it makes a lot of sense, right? There are locations where we have dangerously high speed with turns, and maybe the right thing to do there is to add a roundabout, because we can still keep everybody flowing, good operations, but we brought the potential collision energy way down. Also, looking at speed, there are places like neighborhoods where speed isn't appropriate. So even if we want to provide through access, so someone doesn't have to go way around, maybe we can adjust how quickly they can travel through that area. But generally speaking, there's a need to look at each corridor for what its function is and its users to determine an appropriate speed. And sometimes to get to that speed, it will take engineering updates. There's also adjustments that focus on non-motorists, so those who are walking or biking. We know that they make up a lot smaller share of travelers, and yet they are a large share relatively in our fatalities and serious injuries statewide and nationally. The biggest thing to know with non-motorists is that we are looking to provide pathways that'll get higher use, so we stick to what is comfortable in the community. As we've talked with Rick and Braden, we're looking at more places where we can do a shared use path that's totally separated, rather than maybe in a bigger city where people might focus more on bike lanes that are a little closer to traffic. Biggest thing being that we know the crossings are some of the most dangerous locations, even when we put that shared use path there. So a lot of our focus would be on making crossings more conspicuous, potentially providing controls like signals, even just the rapid flashing beacon signals where a car wouldn't have to stop unless someone was just in the crossing. Intersections are a major part of what we have for fatal and serious injury risk. So a big part of that is figuring out, is our risk on a corridor the main intersection, or is it that smaller driveway style intersection? In a lot of very strong performing commercial areas, there's actually a lot of corridor access management. It can throw people off in the business community because they're used to, I need all roads to lead to my business in order for it to be successful. But generally speaking, that's not what we found in the research, that making adjustments, even just allowing lefts in and not out, has had very little negative effect on business, but strong benefits to the feel and safety of a corridor. So that's a major treatment. If you're talking about at the major intersections, there are some like signals where we can do lower cost things, changing how long the yellow is, putting some additional reflective tape up that can address some of the issues that we're seeing with people not complying with the traffic control. And then there are some more major ones where we actually change the intersection type to a roundabout or to a restricted crossing. So now that I've kind of talked about what might be on the table, I just want to take us through process briefly. Early on, we focus on the data. We say, what are the real issues for Columbus, not just taken from somewhere else? And we want to look at the crash numbers, and then we also want to look at what are some of the planning documents and design standards here in the community. We've done that. It's helped set us up for a lot of this engagement, so that's where we're at right now. It's having engagement with the public and stakeholders to really kind of get through verifying and validating that safety data to what they feel is unsafe and needed. We're also working regularly with technical staff, and then we've started to bring some of these considerations of things like what the community's goals are to this body. Going forward, still a lot to do. There will be recommendations both on the policy process side, and then there will also be recommendations that are the engineering measures themselves. We'll bring those back for public and stakeholder review at the draft plan stage. And then we will bring all of this back to this group to talk about leadership adoption of the plans. That's another requirement of the SS4A program. A main thing that I find to be really successful in this program is that there is a strong handoff, and so we've been keeping all of the conversations between consultant staff and city staff at a level that city staff and a safety committee will be able to take over implementation of this plan after we come up with some recommended actions. And then there will be some future steps that are required of the grant, like annual progress reporting. So again, probably one of the most important things for this group here is understanding, what role can leadership play, what is required of the grant, how can you work with that. One of the things is that there needs to be a planning structure for you to be compliant with that step of the grant. And so we've worked with city staff to determine that a safety committee should be formed. We've had one meeting of the safety committee, another meeting of the safety committee will be coming, but that committee should be able to continue the steps of the safety action plan after the initial plan development happens. One of the first steps of that committee will be to help make a recommendation on that target year. And so we just were wanting to give you guys some information on that so that we can help you and the committee work together with council on adopting a year. But in the short term, that committee helps make sure that the technical recommendations of the plan are feasible and make sense and are carried forward. Longer term, the safety committees are intended to keep action planning over time, because safety planning isn't meant to be done once and then wait a several-year cycle. It needs to stay continuous and be an integral function of your city staff. And so last kind of thing here is to just say that, as leadership for the community, you have a unique role in being safety champions. We know that there's a lot of these crashes that are coming forward because users aren't acting safely and users respect their leadership. So really, really big opportunities in communities that are doing this. You've already made a leader type move by committing community funds to develop this, but just continue to champion safe behavior, commit to goals that push towards significant reductions of fatalities and serious injuries. And then as the plan comes to be finalized in late 2025, adopting the plan would be a step that you could take as leadership. And then looking even a little further forward, knowing that no plan on its own brings about the kind of change we're hoping for, we'll need you to also support funding of priority projects as the plan identifies them. And with that, I'm just kind of hand over any remaining time to questions you might have about the progress we've made so far.
Couple of questions. On your traffic crash statistics, have you compared those to national or our sister city norms? How do we compare to national norms?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have not looked closely at comparisons to national, generally speaking, because the plan's requirements for the grant focus on what Columbus can do in order to bring safer outcomes. And so that would have to be a future task. We haven't done that. So.
I like to look at things and then focus on the most out of the ordinary. Are we killing more people on motorcycles? Are we killing more people on bicycles or pedestrians? Where should we focus our efforts is what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question. And again, there's a little bit that we can tell from Columbus data, but some has to be inferred with other broader data just because there's only so much that can be done in the amount of budget we have, knowing we want to get to real projects and real change. And so I would say that, generally speaking, we called out emphasis areas in the plan. Those are where we looked at how many crashes are happening in Columbus, and then we compared them to how many fatal and serious injury crashes were happening and what was overrepresented. And that kind of led to a situation where angle crashes, speeding crashes, crashes with pedestrians and cyclists, those were standing out. So if we address those crashes first, we'll see much more value than if we were to address the typical rear end crash. But as to how that compares to others, we don't have that right now. Yes.
Something that may help give Brent at least some comfort, and maybe HDR isn't involved, but I know Fremont is conducting this exact same program right now. So I think because of the grant money availability, maybe more of our sister communities are going through the same process that we're going through. But I know Fremont, they were just advertising their public meetings that we had like 3 or 4 weeks ago, so.
It would be very interesting to see, or at least for me, to see how we compare to our sister cities or national norms to provide a good area of emphasis. Thank you.
I do believe we have a question from the audience. Come forward here.
But you have to come forward. With your radio voice.
Yeah, use your best radio voice, would you?
My question is, as part of the,
Identify yourself, would you?
I'm sorry, this is my first meeting. Hi, I'm Riley Scott. I'm here because I want to learn. And my question is, somewhere along the progress of the things that we want to do, because you mentioned it has to be an ongoing thing, it has to be something that will continue, could that include lobbying or a group that would push for tougher laws or tougher consequences for speeding and for not wearing your seatbelt and for using your telephone or your smartphone on when you're on? Because I think part of that is not only education that you shouldn't do it, but a lot of people think, well, nothing's really going to happen if it happens anyway. So is that feasible? That's something maybe somewhere down the line we have a group that, hey, I'm going to lobby for this?
No, it's an excellent question. So I should mention that we're not doing this study in a vacuum. Obviously, a lot of the same trends that are present in Columbus and that are based in the penalties in the state of Nebraska are studied heavily by the Nebraska Department of Transportation and their strategic highway safety plan. They're due for an update, but generally speaking, this study would recommend that as an effective practice, the education of lawmakers and working with enforcement agents, but understandably that takes more than just the city of Columbus in order to make that change. And so it would be a matter of working with other larger advocacy bodies that can help in both Columbus and other places.
Have you determined where the most accidents have happened or the most fatalities have happened within the city?
Yes, yeah. So we can get more specifics on that. Again, I don't have a specific exhibit on that, but when we identified the fatality and serious injury locations, we did an exercise developing what we call a high priority network, and those 4 corridors that I showed you, or 4 or 5, they were all on this high priority network. So while we did omit corridors like Highway 30 and because it's 23rd Street because of city's limited role on that corridor itself, we do have a good sense that the 4 corridors we're talking about in this deck today have quite a few and an overrepresented amount of fatalities and serious injuries.
So the 63 fatalities does not include anything that happened on Highway 30 or 33rd?
That's a really good question. So they are included in there, and yet that corridor is identified, and we're going to, as part of the process, speak with the Department of Transportation But because they have
Okay.
a primary leadership
I see
ballot,
what you're saying.
it's not on the corridor map. Yep.
Anything else? We appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to the continuing progress of this committee, and keep us posted.
Yep. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Safe travels. All right, apologize for being late, but I'm here now, so here we go. Next item is presentation of micro TIF program. Tara?
Hello, I am not presenting. Carly Gadicke has been, I'm a little shorter. So, Carly Gadicke has been working with me all summer, and has been working on a few really important and exciting new things for the city. So she is going to present on the next 3 things. So Carly will come up here. Be kind, this is her first,
On this. Thank you. All of these, right? All of these, just this one?
Okay, hello everybody. Like Tara said, my name is Carly Gadicke, and the first thing I have for you today is a micro-TIF proposal. So micro-TIF is similar to traditional TIF, but its quicker process and use for smaller scale projects are what sets it apart. The reason this process is quicker is because it uses an expedited review to simplify the application and approval process. Micro-TIF is also beneficial as it is not as costly as traditional TIF because there are not as many fees. This process stimulates economic development in blight and substandard areas, which can help in achieving many of the strategic
Can you
plan goals.
can you maybe move a little closer to the microphone?
You just turned it up too.
The older guys on the end can't hear.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe we could get something done with that microphone such that it was closer to the speaker's mouth, do you suppose?
Do you know a good engineer that maybe could work on that?
That was an aside. Please speak slowly, distinctly, and loudly so that the old folk on the ends of the can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shown on the screen are 4 goals that this process can help achieve. The first goal is to improve and maintain existing neighborhoods and housing stock. Micro-TIF helps with this because it is able to provide financial support to property owners who might otherwise lack the means to invest in improvements. The next goal is to ensure safety and social well-being in neighborhoods. Properties that are in substandard condition can diminish area property values, endanger public health and safety, attract criminal activity, and create fire hazards. Micro-TIF can help avoid these issues. The next goal is strengthening the versatility of downtown. Several of the downtown buildings qualify for micro-TIF and would benefit tremendously from the micro-TIF program. The last goal is to ensure that revitalization benefits are widespread and accessible. This process is open to more property owners than traditional TIF because of the ability to make small-scale improvements and because it's not as costly, like I mentioned before. The process of application will be to first develop a plan of action. After the applicant has reached out to the city, the property owner will have an initial meeting with the city to confirm that they are eligible for micro-TIF and to review their project. After this meeting, they will submit their application along with the $50 fee, and the city will then review the application based on the state statute and the city ordinance. Following the decision, the applicant will be sent a copy of the decision and the corresponding resolution if approved. The applicant will then need to complete their project within 2 years from the date of the resolution approval. What questions do you all have?
Would this micro-TIF money come out of the general pool of the current TIF foundation or whatever we're calling it that we have now currently?
No. So we don't have any general fund money of the cities that goes into any TIF project. All TIF projects are financed by the developer or the property owner's financial institution. So we only hold on our books that debt per se because we're the middleman between the county assessor, county treasurer who collects property taxes and then remits them to us for that project, and we remit them to the bank that holds the bond. We're really just a middleman in all TIF projects. So it would be the same for micro TIF. And the draft resolution that Carly and I have been working on would limit the number of projects annually for the micro TIF. We think it'd be advantageous for us to start out with a limit. We're not sure how popular or not the process would be, but also come up with some maybe targeted guidelines, some things we'd really like micro TIF to be used on, and maybe others that would be less advantageous, if that makes sense. Like Carly said, downtown buildings, that kind of stuff could be really beneficial.
Does it have to happen in a blighted area? Does it have to be in a blighted area that's already been designated?
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, we cannot blight another area just for micro tiffing, right?
You can designate other areas to be blight and substandard, but if a property owner applies for micro TIF, the area already has to be in a
Okay.
blight and substandard area.
Okay,
So like a neighborhood that was not blight and substandard, but maybe had a property that just went kaput over the years, that would not qualify because that neighborhood is not
Yeah.
blight and substandard.
You still have to meet
Right, I
the
mean,
blight and
Okay,
substandard
that was
qualifications.
really my question.
that was my,
Yep.
But we could blight it.
You could,
But-
but it's gotta be the whole area. But that neighborhood probably wouldn't fit the designation and the.
There are certainly
yeah.
areas in town that don't qualify
Right,
to be
right,
blight and
yeah.
substandard.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking of an example, out of the blue somewhere,
there's a maximum area within the city that can be designated as blighted and substandard, something like 25% of the
35.
35.
35? Thank you. Where are we as far as,
25. That's where you
we're
got
at
the
25 now and we could go to 35.
And then, are any of those areas, do they come off of that 25% if they, I guess, are deemed no longer blighted?
If you have projects that happen and remove blight conditions, it is recommended that periodically you redo your blight and substandard studies and remove areas. In the time I've been here, we haven't really had any significant areas roll off. Like in the 8 years I've been here, like Hy-Vee came off. But we couldn't really remove that whole corridor area because there's other potential projects that could happen there. But as projects, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
As areas improve, you can roll them off, and it is encouraged to look at that.
Unlike the federal funded, like facade improvements where you had matching grants, are you considering being as restrictive with who can do the construction of any of this type of work? Is that, because that's really what held back a lot of the downtown business people, because they couldn't find those type of contractors that could do that kind of work.
There, to my knowledge, and Carly's done a lot of research on this too, have you seen anything about restrictions on who can do the work? I have not.
I have not either.
So there's no federal funds involved. The only, state law gives us the authority to do micro TIF, and there's nothing on the state books about, following Davis-Bacon and all of those different wage and acquisition sorts of rules. So I don't believe there's anything like that. We would just probably want to think through, you would want a qualified registered contractor
Right.
just in the city, but I wouldn't think all those other
Would
things.
we look at like standards where we look like we were going to try to make it all uniform, try to keep everybody the same instead of having one business look like this and one look like that? Is that, have we had that in the thought process?
Well, that's one of the, obviously, anybody that would apply for micro-TIF would have to meet our existing land development and building codes. So if there was, say, neighborhood covenants, they would have to meet that. If there's city restrictions on, brick facade or anything like that, they'd have to meet that. But we haven't talked about implementing additional restrictions on facade at this point. I do agree with you, like in the downtown, it'd probably be good to say we don't want you to cover a brick building with metal,
Yeah.
And, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good point.
We already have kind of a mixed bag
Yeah.
down there, and it's,
And maybe we
we
can
get
just,
any worse.
yeah, maybe it's as simple as saying it needs to be in keeping with the neighborhood, style or the historical style or something like that.
So what do you feel the participation would be in something like this?
I think there's a lot of projects that would be really good for this. There's a lot of people that come forward. In fact, I had a call today about a guy that is out of town, but he came in to look at buying a building downtown, and he called and asked what tools we have available because it needs a lot of work. And he's looking at doing a restaurant. And that would be something great for downtown, but there's just not that much that we can offer. But that would be a great example of a micro-TIF project, because to do traditional TIF, the increment from today's property value to the improved final property value has to be significant enough to make it worth that investment. A TIF project, just before you do anything, it's about $30,000 of attorney's fees. And then you've got all the other costs on top of it. So this would be a way to do those smaller projects and not have so many hurdles to jump through.
But traditional TIF is used only for infrastructure, and it's not,
No, it's used
not
for a
for housing.
variety.
I mean, yeah.
You can use it for a variety of things.
Okay.
There's a number of TIF laws, but if you can use it on infrastructure, you can use it on exceeding minimum code, you can use it on workforce housing now. There's a lot of different things.
Carly, is there any other cities in Nebraska that are using this micro-TIF?
There are. A few of Columbus' sister cities are using it. For example, Hastings is. They have a great program there, a lot of information on their page. Tara, can you think of any?
I believe Fremont uses micro-TIF. I'm certain that Grand Island does. They're pretty advanced in their TIF usage, but it is a newer concept. I would say within the last 4 years, the legislature authorized the use of micro-TIF. So it is a newer concept, but there's certainly communities that are using it.
And I imagine have you reached out to any of those communities for any feedback on how it's working for them?
I had a conversation with the previous city attorney in Hastings, and he said that it's going well. To his knowledge, he was the one that implemented the process, and I'll have to reach out to others, but there's also the League of Municipalities has been talking a lot about it. So I think who is using it, it's going well. It's just a matter of getting it implemented and then administering it and training staff to administer it. TIF is a very complex process, so.
So who from the city side would be monitoring all of this? You? Okay. There's two hands
Carly,
up.
when she's not back in school.
Carly did already offer to help with some of these things. Not just this, there's 2 more.
Well, I think it sounds like a great tool for our tool belt as we look for development, at least to move into slowly as we try to see what it can do. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I'm concerned, however, with the number of and height of hurdles that will be involved in implementing this program. I think it's a neat concept, but how high do we have to jump and how many hurdles do we have to jump in order to get some money or in order to implement it?
Well, I mean,
It's just the adoption of the ordinance, actually, I think it's an ordinance, right? But after you adopt that, it's just a simple application process. This would be much easier for me to administer micro TIF projects than standard TIF projects. Much less work for me. A standard TIF project for me and Jean to work is probably 30 hours by the time it starts to when it ends of constant work on it and working with the attorney and everything. So I think once you establish the process, it's not going to be any more difficult than what we're used to.
I think I'm comparing it to what we've seen with previous TIF projects.
Yeah.
And they're a PIA.
It's a lot. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to do.
It is a lot. I don't think there's any real negative to adopting a micro TIF process. And as Carly's laid out, there's a lot of, the few other communities that have done it have put in a process where, they come up with a project, they have to have a sit-down meeting with me. We get to vet a lot of the issues. I get to say, you need to do these things before you put in an application and pay the $50. You need to get all these things done. That'll probably weed out some that aren't so serious about it. But I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, I'd really like to see a couple of projects going.
I agree.
Get it started and see what we can do to simplify it and make it streamlined and make it work.
I think it'd be a great project for the downtown. I think it'd be just phenomenal. Because it appears, they keep looking for ways in which maybe to improve, and we're getting some new owners of buildings downtown, and I think it'd be a good way for them to entice them to get started.
President Jablonski, if there's no other questions, I'll recommend approval of creating a micro TIF program for the city of Columbus.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, let's go ahead and vote. Recommendation passes.
You won, Carly, your first one.
Yeah, good job.
Carly.
Don't go out and celebrate too hard now. All right. Next item up is a presentation on the Columbus Youth Council. Oh, you're still up, Carly.
Still
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so like you said, the next item I have to present to you all is the proposal of a Columbus Youth Council. This youth council idea came about to achieve some of the strategic planning goals. The first goal that will be reached is strengthening community engagement and participation in local government. This council is a way for the city to get connected to the youth in the community and show them how their local government works. The next goal is to create local leaders and retain young talent in Columbus. Implementing this council can show the youth that their talent is valued in their hometown and there will always be a place for them in the Columbus community. The last goal is to promote inclusivity in community planning and services. Creating this council shows the youth that our local government appreciates their perspective and is willing to provide this opportunity for them. This slide shows what the structure of the council may look like. Applications to apply for the council would open in August. There would be up to 22 members selected to be in the council. These members would be selected by the 2 city council members who graciously volunteer their time to sponsor this council. This will be a student-led group, but the council members will be there for support and to answer any questions. Meetings would be held twice a month on the 1st and 3rd Sunday at 5 p.m. Meetings would start in October and continue through until May. At the second meeting, the group will elect a student president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And each youth council member will serve a 1-year term, but they may run for re-election. The goals for the members in this youth council will be to learn how our local government works by simulating it at their own meetings. Each member will also have to participate in or observe at least 1 city council meeting during their time on the youth council. Another requirement for this council is to do 10 hours of community service while on the council. Some of these hours will be built into their meetings, and some will be counted when they organize their required youth-focused event per year. The council as a whole will have to present 1 recommendation to the city council at some point during the year. Every month, a youth council member will attend the council meeting to provide a short update over what the council has been up to. And finally, at the end of the year, there will be a progress report of the youth council achievements. While talking through this council, Tara and I envision this only working out if 2 council members would be willing to volunteer to help with this group. These volunteers can change every year if that's what you decide. If there is anyone currently who would be interested, you can speak out. Otherwise, I'll give you time to think about it, and we can follow up at a later date.
I think Kate and Cindy.
Miss Lopez and
very
Miss
interested,
Alarcon
very
would
interested.
love to have it.
Why 22? I guess I missed that. Why that number?
That number can be changed. When I was, trying to come up with ideas to achieve the strategic planning goals, I was looking at what other sister cities do, and Hastings has one with 22 members, so I just thought that would be good to start out with, but obviously that can be changed.
That's a big number. This is not a new idea. I was not on the council when we had.
Mike Fleming.
Mike Fleming had a great.
Mike Fleming had the city council, youth city council members.
And I think it was very successful until Mike went to the Loop Board.
Yeah, well.
Couldn't get anybody to run.
Well, the success is it needs
Yes,
a mentor.
absolutely.
The mentoring
And what
is
what Kylie's suggesting is 2 mentors, but that's, Mike Fleming was that mentor for the youth council,
Yeah.
and he got off the council and moved on to other things, and it just kind of lost its interest. Great idea, but people got to step up and want to be involved. Plain and simple.
And Carly has said that she'll help with like the first meeting, getting it kicked off. That was kind of our timeline. We considered when she might be back, and she could be at the first meeting with the 2 council members and kind of introduce the idea, share with them what the goal of the council was, and kind of get it started. But yeah, we do need some buy-in. I really don't think there's much point in doing a youth council if the elected officials aren't actively participating in it, so.
And, all kidding aside, with Kat and Cynthia not being here, they very well could be interested. I think with them gone, it may just take some time to let things come together, but,
We currently have a group with the Columbus Area Youth Fund, don't we? Already a kind of a structure of a group, the youth, or, no.
No, the city doesn't, but you're talking about what KC and the
Right.
groups are involved with,
Right.
with
Is
the
that
youth.
something maybe we could piggyback with that group and?
She is part
Oh,
of it,
okay.
yeah.
Have you talked to any of the youth, or is there some interest already out there that
I can't say I have talked to any of the youth, but I was thinking, putting myself in a high schooler's shoes right now, it definitely would have been something that I would have been interested in and my friends would have been interested in, so I still feel like, I'm only 19, I just graduated, so probably think the same as high schoolers, but yeah.
Now, the last group,
Probably didn't hear my question. I asked Carly if she thought it would compete negatively with Legacy.
I don't think it would. I think they're two distinctively different things, and I think a lot of the legacy members would like to be a part of this youth council, but I do think that they would go hand in hand with each other.
the last group had, the city clerk was on it, and it was Linda Walters at that time, and she would always organize a field trip for them to go down to the state legislature. And I remember one year we met with Ernie Chambers, and Arnie was there at the time, so we met with him, and a couple other of the state legislators. So the kids really enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
So, good luck.
Thank you.
So what do you ask of us? Just to consider it, or?
Yeah, to consider it and just gauge your interest in it and see what you think.
Well, it's a commitment. And I think it would have to be someone that would be very dedicated to that process.
Are you set on 2 meetings a month? I mean, you're probably mirroring the council meetings, so you want them to get together and review, I'm assuming, but again, it's a commitment, and, 2 meetings a month might be more than people are wanting to buy in. I'm just throwing out ideas back to you.
Yeah, basically anything that I just said can be like
Uh,
gauged towards however much you want to do, however not much you want to do. It all is just temporary right now.
You mentioned members from all 3 high schools. Are you going to cap the amount of kids from each school that can be on the committee?
Well, I thought about doing that, but I feel like it's a little hard when, Columbus High is so big and Scotus and Lakeview are a little smaller, so I don't know. I thought about it, but I just haven't really come to a conclusion on that.
Okay.
Would they have to be residents of?
Yeah.
So Lakeview might be kind of a stretch.
I had it in the bylaws as either a resident in Columbus or attending a Columbus school.
Well, I don't see any hands going up right away.
Well, I was just going to suggest maybe we have a follow-up email in the week or so where Cynthia and Kat can be brought up to speed a little bit more and maybe see if they have some interest in it as well.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, we need nothing to be done here, so next item is a presentation on Columbus Cares Day.
And you're up again.
Last one, I promise. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk.
No.
Okay. The third and final thing I have for you all today is called Columbus Cares Day. This would be a one-day volunteer event. Individuals, nonprofit organizations, and churches could apply to have volunteers help them with some sort of project. Projects can include yard work, picking up litter, painting, spring cleaning, and similar tasks. Individuals can apply to host a job site or sign up to be a volunteer. Both the job site application link and the volunteer sign-up link would be available to citizens on the city website. Volunteers would have to be at least 14 years old to sign up, and all participants would have to sign a waiver that prevents them from holding the city liable if anything does happen. Anyone under the age of 18 would have to have a parent co-sign on that waiver. Volunteers would be split up into a zone based on the location of their job site. There will be 8 zones. The zones will be each of the 4 wards split into 2. The leaders of the zones will be one city council member and potentially a youth council member from the Columbus Youth Council I mentioned earlier. The zones would be color-coded, which would match the color of wristband each volunteer would get when checking in. As part of the strategic plan, it states that getting the council more involved in the community is one of its goals. This event would be a great way to get involved and make an impact. With that being said, I would ask you all to participate in this event as a zone leader. We may also rely on you to suggest certain job sites in your zone that you see necessary. The strategic planning goals that this event accomplishes is strengthening civic participation and building strong connections among residents. This event will connect citizens and show how they can truly make a difference in their community. This event will also help maintain and enhance the physical appearance of the Columbus community. To adequately advertise this event, the process will begin in January, when postcards about the event would be sent out. A section about this event would also be put on the city website along with the job site application link and the volunteer sign-up link. In March, a press release would go out, and in May and June, there would be several social media posts made about the event. Job applications and volunteer sign-ups would close at the beginning of June with hopes to potentially host the event towards the beginning of June. What questions do you have?
The volunteers you're looking for to help with the projects, are they all adults or can youth be involved?
Anybody above the age of 14, so
Okay.
youth and adults.
Okay, thank you.
Would there potentially be postcards on your first site kind of mentioned nonprofits and individuals, but say like community businesses? If they organize like, I know a lot of places do volunteer days, kind of like a vacation day. So rounding up some local businesses to maybe designate 20 volunteers or something to go do a zone.
Yep, we had talked about that. I haven't really acted on that yet, just was kind of waiting to see what you all would think, if you liked the idea, if you didn't like the idea, but that's definitely in the next steps for sure.
And
I
what,
think that's a great idea, getting businesses involved.
what type of cleanup are we talking about? Yard work, painting, shingling?
Yeah, so like if you were to apply to host a job site, it would have to be like something like pretty simple, like
Very
painting,
simple, thank
right?
you.
But like you would have to submit it, and it would have to be like approved just to make sure it wasn't too dangerous. Like shingling, that's probably not.
Unless we have a roofing company that volunteers.
Yeah.
There you go. Would it be income-based, or are we just looking at anybody that wants somebody to come out and clean up, or how are you going to pick the people that are going to be the lucky winners of this cleanup?
I wouldn't like to shut it off to anybody, so.
My wife will probably be burning the phone up, so.
But I think that's kind of the point too of Carly thinking that you guys could split up your ward, so then it is kind of your neighborhood. So if you know if there's a family in need or an elderly person still in their home that needs help with cleaning up their yard or painting the shutters or painting the trim or something, that you could kind of help us get those projects lined up or get them coming in, and then have some connections in your neighborhood, and be a great way for you all to kind of give back to your neighborhoods, but also get the community to help you do that.
So if there was, let's say we're doing a yard cleanup, when it comes to like the fees of dumping stuff, is that going to be something that would be waived? Like if you got a bunch of brush or something?
Well, I can't say I thought of that, but I will definitely
Turn to the
work
guy
on
right
that.
Sitting right next to you.
TBD, we'll determine that.
All of these things that you presented are really kind of neat ideas. I like the ideas, but without a champion for those ideas, someone that's going to mentor, foster the volunteers, organize, it's going to fail. We had an example of Mike Fleming and the youth group that he mentored umpteen years ago. You're going to have to find a champion for each of these projects. Good luck.
Would you like to be a champion?
Oh, great.
Not particularly, thank you. I'm just looking at the reality of things, and without someone to organize them, and, well, quote unquote, be the champion for it, it isn't gonna work. I guess I've said what I wanted to say.
Well, no, I think what you're saying, we all recognize, and Carly's known that coming in here with wide eyes. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd be fighting to say, hey, pick me and I'll help do it. But, you know, we're all gonna sit here and tell everybody how busy we are, and can we do it? You know, that's the question, and that's where we are. That's the reality of where we are. But without mentoring, none of this will work. It's not going to fall on Carly because she's going off back, you know, it's going to school. It's not going to fall on staff because this is not a staff project. It's one of those feel-good things that could really make a difference and make us feel good, but it's got to have leadership and mentoring, you know. And, you know, and quite honestly, to all of us here, if it doesn't right now, that's not a negative. People do have busy schedules. People are involved in many things. But I think we have to listen and we have to let it sink in and then see, is there that opportunity? Yeah.
Have you talked to Vanessa about this program?
There you go.
I think you're referencing Keep Columbus Beautiful.
Yeah.
We haven't talked to her. I think if you guys are interested, that would be a natural, likely partnership. They have a pretty good volunteer base, but until you guys want to take this on, there's not much point in initiating that conversation.
Anything else for Carly?
I have nothing else. Thank you all for your time and this
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you for
Great
your
ideas.
time. Great
Thank you
ideas.
very much. I'm sincerely appreciative of your efforts and trying to get these guys together to get something done. It's kind of like herding cats. But maybe with a little youth leadership, you might get something done. Thank you.
Sounds like a champion right there.
Nothing else, meeting adjourned. Thank you for your time. Question.